Well, folks, here again for the weekly forecast. And during this last week, of course, we dealt with that significant severe weather event that happened last Friday into Saturday morning, where we had the derecho type event, basically a long line of thunderstorms with very heavy wind move from northeast Nebraska through eastern Nebraska and then exit out during the early morning hours. And we had wind speeds clocked anywhere from the 60 to 85 mile an hour range at the peak of the intensity of the storms. And then we did see a brief lull in the activity until we got into the midweek period, and we've seen thunderstorm redevelopment as the systems pushed around the periphery of the ridge that was bringing the heat to our region. We actually seen some significant severe weather in the Panhandle and also up into portions of east central Nebraska, particularly just to the north of Columbus and over toward the Missouri River, and of course a scattering of precipitation. And we did see some good rainfall across eastern Nebraska, but not to the point where we feel confident enough in the areas that we depicted last week as being abnormally dry or in moderate drought to see improvement. So hopefully as we get into next week, a couple more precipitation chances that are in the forecast will pan out, and we'll see some improving conditions. So as we go to the upper air models, what we are looking for today is that we do have an upper air trough to our west with a high pressure ridge at the surface and in the upper atmospheres, keeping the heat to our south. We're on the northern periphery of that, so we are expected to be in the 90s for most of Nebraska. Surface low depicted basically in western Kansas. That is going to allow moisture to lift up and interact with the systems move around the periphery of the ridge, bringing some thunderstorm activity to South Dakota and northern Nebraska. As we get into Sunday, that trough starts to move inward toward the northern Rockies. Surface low pressure indicated in the Dakotas and in northwestern Kansas. That is going to lift the moisture up as that warm front starts to build its way toward the Great Lakes. So we're going to see convection from northeast Nebraska all the way through the eastern Corn Belt. And as we get into Monday, this trough starts to move across the northern plains. We do indicate surface low is expected to develop in the western South Dakota. That should allow for some thunderstorm activity to continue across the northern plains and into the upper Great Lakes region all the way through the eastern Corn Belt. And then as we get into Tuesday, this low pressure system or trough will move toward the Great Lakes, bringing much cooler conditions into our region for a couple days. We'll be back down into the 80s for most of the state, which will be right within normal to slightly below normal as most of the precipitation stays well to our east. Now as we get into the day on Wednesday, we start to see the ridge building back in, so warmer conditions start to move into western Nebraska, but we'll still be under the influence of cool high pressure across eastern Nebraska, although we will see some moderation of temperatures closer to the upper 80s. Most of the precipitation will remain to the south. It was at the very southern portion of that high pressure system. And then as we get into Thursday, we start to see the ridge build back in. The heat starts to lift up from Texas. We are looking at low pressure developing over central Texas. That is going to start to feed moisture to the north. But most of the activity, once again, will be confined to our south, and that will keep most of the moisture out of our region until we get into Friday, when this trough starts to make its inroads into the northern plains and northern Rockies. We'll see surface low pressures developing in the western Dakotas and to our south across northern Texas and Oklahoma. We should see two distinct areas of thunderstorms to our south and one right to the north as that starts to push southward, bring us increasing chance of precipitation next weekend. 8 to 14 day forecast next Thursday through the following Tuesday, below normal temperatures for the northern plains and above normal precipitation.